thought you'd understand.
Oh, I understand. Like you said, who could love a hideous, ugly beast?
What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the intolerably informative Dr. Disaster, and it seems that there are, in fact, consequences for deciding to follow an industry trend rather than listen to the customers. Doing so results in absolute
failure.
We've talked about this sort of thing many times, but for some reason people in the gaming industry just can't seem to get it into their heads that male gamers make up the vast majority of people who play video games. As evidence of this survey here, conducted by Nintendo last year of around 600,000 Switch users, shows that 86% of the respondents were dudes. And with that in mind, as it turns out, most guys have a particular aesthetic that they prefer when it comes to female characters in video games.
I love boobies!
What dudes don't like are characters like this, which is featured in the upcoming Fable reboot. This character is blatantly nasty ugly. Men do not want to play as a character like this. The feminists can whine and complain that,
actually, this woman here is realistic.
well, as far as I'm concerned, that is just an admission that you are pretty ugly as well, and it really doesn't change the fact that guys don't like this. And a ton of games with characters like this one have been flopping hard recently to the point that it has cost a lot of jobs. The Chud pushback has certainly had an effect.
Yes, I can feel you slipping!
Well, one of the studios working on this upcoming Fable game has been suffering from some devastating numbers of layoffs this year, and another round has just come out. Eidos Montreal just announced more layoffs, and considering their history on Tomb Raider, pushing the so-called more realistic female character aesthetic, it seems that their failures are finally catching up to them. It's been reported that Fable, which was already pushed back from this year to 2026, might not even hit that target date. You would think that this would mean they would need all hands on deck with all the work that needs to be done, but the layoffs suggest that it isn't a manpower problem. Instead, the slowed down release date for Fable seems, at least from the outside here, like a crisis of confidence, as if they believe that releasing the game in the current climate, where protagonists like this are regularly getting destroyed, they think that that will be a catastrophe. It's as if they finally understood our message to them.
You are one ugly mother. Motherfucker!
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've had a lot of people tell me that they have been unwillingly unsubscribed to the channel. Almost every day I hear from someone who says they didn't believe me when I talked about this phenomenon, but then they noticed that they themselves were unsubbed from the channel. I don't know why it happens, but I do hear it a lot, so look into that. I will be making this portion of my videos skippable by making it into a chapter on the video timeline. But I do need to keep saying this because the amount of people telling me that it happens to them is just unbelievable. Anyways, let's have a peek at what's going on with this studio, whose work is almost exclusively these days on the Fable game as a support studio. You have to keep in mind some important context when it comes to Eidos Montreal. The last two games that they have put out, or helped put out, were Marvel's Avengers about 5 years ago, That game sold like shit, and by all accounts it was just not very good, and prior to that, they headed up Shadow of the Tomb Raider back in 2018, which had very low sales figures compared to previous iterations of the IP. And once again, we are talking about a studio which followed the industry trend of listening to the loud-ass, screeching harpy feminists who demanded that actually we couldn't have female characters in games that looked like classic Lara Croft anymore because somehow that was evil and it was hurting women due to unrealistic standards or something. Well, now they're up to their old tricks again with Fable. Here is the actress who plays the main character in this Fable game. She isn't a supermodel or anything like that, but she looks fine. If the character had looked exactly like her, I don't think anyone would have had a problem with this game, but they intentionally smashed the character in the face with every branch from the ugly tree, to the point that when they released this trailer a few years ago, they were getting ratioed into oblivion. Look at this here, they had 26,000 likes versus 63,000 dislikes, and it prompted comments like this one, where this person wrote, "I don't understand why the giant's face is so realistic, but the adventurer's face is so uncanny." Well, the game was originally supposed to release this year, but it was pushed back to 26, and there has been talk it will need another year beyond that, even though the game was announced with a reveal trailer all the way back in 2020 originally. There has been talk that they have been trying to upgrade the main character's face behind the scenes, as images like this have surfaced showing that the current model of her looks less repulsive. But keep in mind some further context that the publisher, Xbox, recently canceled another project for a similar reason. Perfect Dark featured an abhorrent rendition of Joanna Dark, and that game got the axe because people were hating on it big time, and they cut their losses on the project. I don't expect that Fable will get that same treatment. I don't expect it's going to get canceled, but with all of this drama taking place surrounding the game in the background, it is unsurprising that Eidos Montreal would be suffering from layoffs. It wouldn't shock me if the mismanagement of these IPs in this way was a major contributor to these layoff decisions, but we are going to read about what is going on in this article here from Insider Gaming, which I will link in the description. The article says at the bottom there, Eidos Montreal, the studio known for developing Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and supporting games like Tomb Raider and others, has had more layoffs. Over the last week, a number of now former employees took to LinkedIn to announce that they were no longer with the company. Hey there, gameplay director Samuel Dar wrote, "Was working at Eidos, loved it and would have stayed, but times are difficult. In total, at least a dozen or more people are now looking for work. This is the second known wave of job cuts at the studio after 75 people were let go back in March. At the time, it was said that the layoffs were done due to mandates coming to an end, and that sounds an awful lot like they were losing work as a studio. And knowing what we know about Fable in the background, I have suspicions that this means that Eidos Montreal is having less and less to do with that project. And now, keep in mind that the most recent report as to the number of employees at Eidos Montreal was about 480 back in 2022, and if they let go of 75 people earlier this year, that amounts to around 15% of that number. That is massive. We don't know specific exact numbers as to the current layoff wave that is hitting them, but if it's anywhere close to the previous layoffs, then they will have lost something in the neighborhood of a quarter to a third of the people working at the company. But let's read some more. It says next, and while one would hope that the latest layoffs are the end, that doesn't appear to be the case. In recent days, multiple sources have explained to Insider Gaming most projects at at the studio have been cancelled. The focus of Eidos Montreal right now, they say, is on the work it's doing with Microsoft and Xbox on games like Grounded 2 and Fable. There's also another internal project that started development in 2019, which, sources say, has no way of recouping its current costs. After those projects wrap, however, additional staff reductions are already forecasted. In other words, this is looking an awful lot like a dead studio, as if they have nothing going for them at all any longer. It seems that with the likes of Xbox laying people off and trying to actually become a for-profit business instead of a cost sponge for activists, well, it seems like it is going to become harder for these guys to find any kind of a payday. But this is what happens when you get involved with projects like this that are decidedly going against the grain and not giving customers what they want. They've developed at Eidos Montreal a reputation for putting out dog shit by now. And look, maybe the Fable delay is just a result of a series of, technical blunders. Well, that's not going to reflect well on these guys either, especially after Marvel's Avengers was such a colossal flop several years ago, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider was considered a major disappointment as well. The through line appears to be this studio. So, it's unsurprising that there are consequences like this. Hopefully Fable fully fixes its protagonist though. It's amazing how selective these game studios are about some actors having their characters always look exactly like them on the screen. Deborah Wilson is notorious for this, but when it comes to actresses like this, these people have been bound and determined to do anything to fight against the evil male gaze. Hopefully this shit will change, but I'm gonna leave it there. Eidos Montreal is laying people off. What do you think is the cause of their downfall, and do you even think they will exist in the next few years? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching me, Hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.